This week on the Rockman Power Hour, we are joined by one of the stars of the Monster Squad. Hey, what's going on? And welcome back to the Rockman Power Hour, a podcast where we talk to the most interesting people in the world of pop culture, film, music, and everything in between. I would love to say that I do this all by myself because it's the Rockman Power Hour, but it's pretty much the Rockman Stick Kajerski Power Hour, which we're looking at changing the name, but I don't know. What do you think, Ryan?
That is the most terrible mix of our names I've ever heard in my life.
I'm joined by my
Rockstick sounds cool. But Rockstick Kajerski sounds like something that the Swedish chef would say on the Muppet Show.
So thanks for joining us on the Rockman Power Hour. Ryan, you're excited about this one, and so am I, because you recently turned me into a big fan of the Monster Squad. And this is because I knew you loved this movie, but I had never gotten to see it because no one had a copy of it.
Yeah.
And you were nice enough to order me this copy when Kino Lorber put the 4K out for pre-order. So you pre-ordered this. This was my birthday present. And you and Melissa came over and watched this with Julia and I. And I got to experience Monster Squad, kind of like you got to watch Dune with me for the first time. We got to watch Monster Squad together for the first time for me. And I loved this movie. And I remember we had gotten a chance to talk to Andre briefly when his documentary Wolfman Got Nards came out during the pandemic, because we were doing stuff for Montreal Comic Con, for all the Comic Cons, to help keep people entertained and stuff. And Andre came on and talked about his documentary, which was great, but I hadn't seen the movie. So I was like, okay, everyone talks about this movie. Dude, not only is this a great movie that totally just got lost in the shuffle of pop culture in the 80s, but the documentary Wolfman Got Nards, which I had seen before the movie, is great. But I get it now because I saw the movie and I totally understand what happens when you see this movie. You become a fan and you want to carry the torch for it.
You become a fan. It's kind of like when you like a band that no one else knows at the same time. But at the same time, you want it to sell out. You want it to be like, hey, wait a second, everybody should know this band.
You want it to be this thing where everybody loves it, you know?
Yeah, I don't want to keep it in a closet all by myself. I actually just want to be able to engage in conversation with more people about it, especially when they claim to be horror and monster fans. And then when they don't hear about this movie and they love Dracula and Frankenstein, it leaves your head scratching. You're like, wait a second. Yeah. You can have a soup of everything you like all at once. But yet at the same time, you're just too Goonie loyal.
It's really Goonie loyal. It's a great movie. I think that the folks over at Kino have done a beautiful transfer of Monster Squad. Everybody that I know that loves the movie, that's seen this transfer, has said, I mean, it's never looked better. But it's a great movie, and I'm really grateful that I've gotten to see it, become a fan, and nobody knows this movie and can talk about this movie or can talk to this movie better than our guest this week, Andre Gower. I mean, this guy he's literally part of the Monster Squad. And the fact that we're going to have him on today, I know you're super excited about this because you love him, but I'm super excited because I loved him too. I just thought he was wonderful. Just a really nice guy. But before we go too far, we have to thank our friends over at Heartbeat Hot Sauce, the heartbeat of the Rockman Power Hour. Check them out over at heartbeathotsauce.com. Use our promo code Rockman20 and you'll get 20% off your entire order. That stuff, dude, will burn. That is wonderful. And the way you can tell is if you turn that around, Ryan, what does it say on the old spice-o-meter?
Oh, well, I have bad eyes, so lots.
Yeah, I think that's a hot, extra hot.
Very. That's
a great one. So, and that's what's great about their stuff. They have this little meter on the back that'll tell you how hot it is. So here we're looking at a mile.
Okay, yeah, no, that is up there.
Yeah, we're looking at a mild to medium in the jalapeno, but that one, dude, that Poirier one, is hot. So
Mm.
there's something for everyone. Rockman 20 is your promo code. You get 20% off. And thanks to our friends over at Studio House Designs, you have got the Lost Boy shirt. Love it. And it's a nice tongue in cheek to have that on when we're talking about Monster Squad.
Yeah, because this is a movie that helped kill it at the box office because everybody was into sexy teen vampires at this point. So when
Yeah.
Dracula shows up in a hearse and like a suit, they're like, we like our vampires to be mopey and disturbed and dangerous and sexy. Yeah.
Well, that's a great shirt from Studio House Designs, and I'm rocking the Blair Witch. The Blair Witch drop that they did was really, really cool. I love these subtle prints that they do on the pocket side, the breast pocket subtle. Back is like this crazy poster, but check them out, studiohousedesigns.com. Okay, let's not talk too much because this is a long interview, but it's a great one.
A monster-sized interview.
It is a monster-sized interview for a monster-sized movie, and Andre Gower is just wonderful. So check this out. Our chat with Andre Gower from Monster Squad and director of Wolfman Got Nards. So I'm going to set the table here. First of all, thanks for joining us tonight. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I want to just be really transparent out of the gate. I had not seen this movie until Ryan gifted me the new 4K version that Kino Lorber put out for my birthday, which I was very excited to get because I was going to pre-order it. I waited, and then the day of release, it was fucking sold out everywhere I went to look. Like literally, it sold out at Unobstructed View. It sold out at like all the regular haunts for me, where I buy physical media, was gone. And Ryan's like, "Well, I've got good news." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "I bought 3 copies and one's for you." I'm like, "Yes!" So I finally got to see this over the holidays, and what was great about it was that I got to see it with Ryan and Melissa and my wife, who are big fans of the movie. So I went in, I don't want to say I went in blind, but I went in knowing that for them, it was a huge, huge part of their childhood. It was a really, really important movie. And I was like, man, I hope this doesn't fucking suck. And
I know, right? It's always the pressure, right? Especially we're right there and we're like, I don't want to make them cry by blowing it. I mean, like,
but man, I really, really enjoyed the movie. Like I couldn't believe how much I enjoyed the movie. And to the point where I was like, why was this fucking movie not more popular? And then, of course, from doing research before, knowing about your documentary and seeing your documentary, which is kind of weird because I saw the doc before I saw the movie.
Got it.
I realized that this movie is a cult classic. And like many cult classics, they just developed this fan base. And the reasons why the original movie didn't do well don't make sense. It doesn't add up. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because they have something that's even cooler than box office success. They have real cred. And this movie has exactly that. I not only did I like the movie, I thought the transfer that Kino did. I don't know if you've seen the 4K transfer of the movie, but
I haven't seen it yet. Everybody's been saying it's really good.
It looks incredible. It looks incredible. And what a great movie. Like what a fun movie.
It is. And this is this is just kind of another instance that someone comes in whenever, right, Ryan, that hasn't seen it, and then I don't want to say says the same thing because it's not the same thing. They say similar things, but their experiences are singular and different, and it hits for different reasons for different people. Whether it holds up or someone connects with a character or something like that. But what's interesting is we get even longer in the space of the time that it actually came out, and we all get older, especially me, to find what connects and what kind of makes it work for somebody. It kind of stays the same, but then some things change. It kind of changes over time, which just means that I think it evolves.
Yeah,
because either the themes, the characters, I think everything's either an actual archetype or someone can create an archetype for themselves in what they're seeing or hearing or whatever it is. And, over these years, I've had so many, I would say we, because it's almost like a collective experience with us and the cast that we went through and all that stuff. But, we have, really heard so many different type of reasons why someone likes it or how they connected to it or why it's still a thing and why it can still be enjoyable today. And I think it's all those things combined, and it's just really, really interesting. So it's it's always kind of neat to talk about it.
Something that I find fascinating, especially showing it to Rockman is almost kind of like, because to me and Melissa, both of our families separate. She's 4.5 years older than me, and lived across the city, but somehow found it when she would go visit her cousins who live out in the country. And
Right.
I discovered it because we have a video store called Movie Land that just had cool shit. Back in the day, there was this urgency to go see something in the theater. Now, of course, I did not see Monster Squad in the theater, but I must have run that rental video. I must have almost broke it based on how the rewinding I've done on that thing. And I got to say, Jason's a big advocate of physical media, and we're here to talk about the 4K transfer. What's interesting about this, folks, who's ever listening or watching this right now, is there was no Blu-ray release of the Monster Squad. There's this wonderful DVD, and then it skipped Blu-ray technically, and now it's on 4K, and now the Monster Squad Blu-ray is included in this, and your documentary, and all those features from that fucking awesome DVD too. So really, it was like 50 Canadian dollars, and it was like the best purchase I've ever made. And it's on display in the house. It's so fucking important to us. And I gotta say, what's awesome is that your documentary Wolfman Scott Nards is no longer kind of just something you did, but now part of its release. Now it's one in the same. How did they approach you to be like, hey, your documentary was fucking beautiful. It honored the fandom of Monster Squad, but instead of making it some extra thing someone has to chase for, we're going to make you a fucking special feature. When does that happen?
Actually, not that long ago, which is weird. It was a very last minute thing.
Get the
kind of elevator version of it is there was some kind of discussion about it back in early summer. But not with me. It had been mentioned. There had been a little drip of info from inside. When you know these people like inside baseball, that work at Kino or do special features for Kino, something like you hear that, hey, Kino Lorber is going to put out a 4K release of Monster Squad, and everybody's like, yeah, okay, whatever. And they're like, oh, well, that's kind of interesting. And then I always am like, do we need it for it? Oh, maybe. I guess I bet you a lot of people would like it as long as it turns out well. So I was like, okay. And then there was a little bit of discussion about, hey, you should talk with them and discuss the documentary, because the documentary had been out for a while. Mm-hmm. And whether everybody knows the backstory of the release of the documentary or not, we had this kind of big, I don't know if it wasn't a speed bump. It was almost like, you hear these stories in Florida where there's like a sinkhole and like you're riding and then just cars disappear into the quicksand. That's sort of what happened with the release of the documentary prior to the actual release, because we'd actually had this giant acquisition by a really cool company that was really gung-ho about blasting this documentary out and really taking it to town. And it just so happened to be that was happening in the fall of 19 and crossed over into the new year of 2020. And then this COVID thing started being, and then something got messed up. And honestly, I'm not sitting because I won't say any names, but apparently the problem was a certain individual who happened to be in a position that rhymes with sales agent of the documentary, had not seen the completed email with the agreement and the finalized contract and all that. And then it just, the whole deal died. And then we had to end up finding another distributor late in the middle of this beginning of this pandemic thing that no one knew what was going on. So we lost this giant deal that was a big push. So we kind of had to put the movie out basically on our own.
Right.
And, we had a great little push, had a great publicist, Brittany Sandler, and we did some cool stuff. And I think, we may have even talked,
we spoke to you.
Yeah. And then it just kind of went out there. It kind of had a nice little pop, and then it just lives where it lives.
Right.
And which is a little, it's great because it's out there. Look, you make something nice and people like it. And the ones that give a shit, they give a shit, and they have it and they own it. But one thing that the distributor that we ended up doing a deal with at the time had no interest in physical.
Okay.
And they just don't in their titles, and that's just not their thing. They have another thing like that they concentrate on. And it was caught in this time that was kind of a 2020, 2021 wasn't a good 12 months.
No.
And or wasn't a great 12 months. And for anybody, but especially me personally, I'm not trying to make it about me, but a lot of shit went down in that year that it ended up in a crazy place. But the whole time I thought about it, I was like, you're not interested in physical media. And I'm telling this backstory because I'm going to drop a little tidbit and then I'm going to hit you with something that you'll both like.
No, please.
And during this whole kind of delivery process for the previous acquisition deal that we had, Henry and Henry McComas, who is the main driving force behind what you see with the doc, he's just amazing. And he just made his first feature for as a Tubi original up in your neck of the woods, Ron. He was in Canada for that. And
nice.
Anyway, Henry's amazing, and he's the reason that we have what you see with Wolfman. And Wes and I and all of the people at Pilgrim Media Group on the delivery side were delivering the movie to this original company that was acquiring it. And one of the things that we did for the 10, 11 months that we were shooting is we had a lot of extra fun footage and a lot of cool stuff that we did. Little shorts, little gags, there's a music video and extended, we have hours and hours and hours of extra interviews and things like that aren't in the final cut.
Right.
And so we took about 2 weeks or 3 weeks and really polished 60 minutes of extra features.
Okay.
And then a couple weeks later, a couple months later, that deal didn't happen. We ended up, 6, 7, 8 months later with a different distributor who doesn't worry about physical media. And my first question was, do you know anything about Monster Squad and the Monster Squad fans?
Yeah.
You don't want to do something physical. And at the time I thought, I was like, okay, can we do a carve out where I do physical by myself?
Right.
And they were not game for that. They're like, no, we have all the rights. And we're like, well, shit. And one of the things that, with Wolfman, when it came out, you could order a DVD or a Blu-ray, but it was on like the Amazon video services thing, like on-demand order. It wasn't an on-demand digital thing. It was I want a Blu-ray. So they press one and then they print out the cover art and they mail it to you.
Right.
And whether you get a good print of the movie or the cover art, that's up to the dice.
Eesh.
And some people liked it. Some people had problems with it. They returned it. They replaced it. But, it just didn't do that because they were like, I'm a Monster Squad fan. I want something that I really, really like.
Yeah.
So we kind of missed that window and there wasn't really anything to do. So fast forward to this last summer and this Kino thing's coming up. And to speed up the long story, I ended up in a conversation with the Kino folks. And they said, hey, here's what we're doing. We are putting together a 4K remaster of Monster Squad that we want to release in November. And then everybody goes, why not October? Does anybody know Monster Squad fans?
Yeah.
But I think, they know what they're doing. And there was this really short time window anyway. And they had put together, he had kind of explained what they were putting together. Like, we're going to add some old stuff. We're going to kind of clean up some of the things that we had in the 2007 DVD release and the subsequent stuff. But I really like your documentary. And what I'd like to do is add that as a bonus disc in this release. And I was like, well, that's fantastic idea and be kind of neat for people that don't have it with physical that will buy, they'll get something. And luckily in the midst of the, so then we had to go into a whole thing with carving out the rights and doing a deal. So we got that all squared away. But we ended up doing that very quickly because on the phone call, I said, well, that's neat. I have to make about 2-3 phone calls, get some people geared up, get it going. It takes a process to deliver a movie, for distribution. There's some tech specs and some cleanup and and just make sure everything matches what they're trying to do. And I said, okay, you're putting this in this is like mid-August. I said,
wow, that's really quick.
I was like, this is mid-August. I said, when do you need delivery? Or when do you need all this done and to you? He goes, but next week. And I said, dude, I don't know if I'm going to get them to call me back by next week. My studio partner and everybody that's working on it. Anyway, we turned it around very, very quickly, got the paperwork done, which was the first thing that had to be handled with, contracts and agreements and the lawyers. And then the tech folks got on it, and we had the thing that was basically ready to deliver anyway. Mm-hmm. So we got it to them very quickly, and they were able to add it to this 4K release that came out in November that everybody went wild about and sold out, and you can't get it. It's just like it was just like the 2007 DVD release. It like, hey, Monster Squad out of print again. You can't have it.
I know. But I thought 2007 is out of print. Yeah.
Again, so it's hard to get this awesome, Kino Lorber. And he was telling me a couple of things that they were going to do, which I thought was going to be neat. And then it came out, and I'm blown away by it. I think it's really neat.
Yeah.
But during that conversation, I believe I'm allowed to talk about it now. If I'm not, then they can watch your show and then call me. I had mentioned that 60 minutes of bonus features. And he said, I didn't know you have that. I said, nobody does. And he said, well, now this is what I want to do. And this isn't an official announcement. This is the plan in progress. He said, I want to add Monster Squad to this 4K release that everybody that is now we've talked about.
Right.
They just don't know this is part of it. It'll sort of be, kind of, we'll announce it, when we do kind of like the product drop. And then after that 4K release, I'd like to release Wolfman's Got Nards as a standalone special release with the extra speech, with Kino. With Kino.
That's great because Kino, well, I was going to say that's great because Ryan knows, there's a handful of players right now that are doing physical media right. And Kino are one of them, especially since they do, I almost pick up all their 4K transfers because they're just amazing. They did one recently for To Live and Die in LA. And it's just, it blows my mind.
Oh, great. That'd be cool to see.
They do some of the best stuff right now. So the fact that you got bundled in with this and that they're interested enough to do Wolfman on its own with extra footage, I think is amazing.
Yeah. And what that's going to, even though it's late in the game, but, it's kind of a Kino cool release. And some of these fans that the fans were going to buy this 4K release anyway, whether it had Wolfman or not. It's just that's just sort of like a perk. Because they don't have it physically, and they got a really good. I think the doc actually looks good on this disc. That it's a good version. It's a good version for the documentary. Because it's very interesting. If people that are listening or watching don't know, it's not. There's a lot that goes into making a film or a music video or anything, especially with anything video and audio combined. And there's a lot of technical shit that goes on.
Yeah.
And just because you do it right, either in camera or in the microphone or in post, doesn't mean it's going to be right when you show it.
No.
And that ranges from what the projector bulb in a theater is doing. Do you have to color correct for a certain type of DCP player in a chain of theaters? Are your blacks crunched or, like right now in this, I don't know what's looking on your end, but at my end, I look a little crunched in here because it's a little kind of dark, but I've got some weird lighting in this room that I try to highlight some cool stuff. But, we went through a lot of technical stuff just to festival this movie and then deliver it, to the distributor to get out on streaming and digital. And then you worry about when it comes out on, this Kino release or something. But I think everybody says it looks and sounds great. And hopefully, I think, like I said, they do a good job making sure they don't just rip something out and put it on on a digital shelf to ship to you without taking some time and some attention to it. And so that's really, really cool. And, that's going to be really neat to kind of see, if, like I said, we're in the process of making that happen. The paperwork's done. It's supposed to be a thing. This isn't an announcement, but that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Great.
And then, hey, I'll come back and we'll hang out. And we'll talk about that release.
Fuck yeah, dude.
It's funny too, because I don't know if you're familiar with RKSS, but they did Turbo Kid.
I love all of them. They're some of my favorite people when I see them on the road. Yeah.
Amazing people. So when they did Summer of 84, it was the same thing. Summer of 84 didn't have an official Blu-ray release, but it had a theatrical release. And then it kind of went to streaming, but there was no physical. So they just burned CDs, burned discs themselves. And then Vinegar Syndrome grabs it and puts
Yeah.
out a proper release with
Yeah.
the way Vinegar Syndrome does stuff, which is just
Yeah.
beautiful, and it's fucking gone. So again, it makes me say physical media is very much alive and well with the collectors, and they want, hey, you would have put this in, if you would have put this in an Arrow video type release with, a hard box and a 200-page booklet, it would have been eaten up as well. So it was just great to see that Monster Squad got the respect it deserved, and being a first time person to it, never have seen it any other way. I was like, I just watched it and I was like, this movie looks phenomenal. And I kept looking at Ryan. I'm like, does this look good? And he's like, dude. No, dude, I've never seen it like that. And then, oh, that lightning and his teeth and his skin. It's like the whole thing they knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting a copy for myself.
Yeah. I hope you get a slipcover.
I think I can call
the slipcovers are the first
they are. And what's great, if you notice, and I'm sure Ryan's seen this, but maybe Rockman doesn't know, because he was telling me this months ago prior to the release, that they were, it's always cool when they do a release and they do their own cover art or alter cover art. And what's great about the main cover art there is they chose a version that someone had made a while. They tweaked it, and Ashley on the actual cover art, because in the original Monster Squad theatrical movie poster, which is also the VHS cover, and the insert on the 2007 Lionsgate DVD, the 20th anniversary, the actual movie poster is really cool and very iconic. And, I mean, I've signed a million of them, they're big collector's pieces. The hero of the movie is not on the movie poster.
Yeah. Yeah.
Phoebe is not on the poster. Yeah. And it's all because she wasn't able to come to the photo shoot where we sat on a car in a parking garage and took that photo for the plate to do. But I never understood at the time in 87 was, that's not a photo. That's a plate that they animate, digitize, and do and artistically render. You could have taken a photo and put her on it.
Put her in there, yeah, of course.
They just never added Phoebe, who is ultimately the hero of the movie. So not only is she on this, because even internationally, the only poster she was ever on was the Australian poster, and but so Kino did their own art on this one, and Phoebe's on there. They also, if you have the insert of the original poster. So she's in that one, which is great.
Yeah.
But also, I think on the inside of the actual box set, or where the discs are, they have the original movie poster somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got that version.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. On the back. Yeah. So this is what they usually do, is they do this.
Right. So, and if you notice, that's the original movie poster.
Right.
And now Phoebe is on it.
That's so cool, because you've been I've interviewed you before during the pandemic. Thank you very much. I'm always so excited every time you're on a show, or every time I pitch you as an interviewee to somebody. I'm like, dude, this guy is a Kevin Smith storyteller, a wealth of knowledge, and he'll have you sitting on the edge of your seat, and he could be talking to you about, like, I don't know, a taco, and you'd be like, holy shit, this taco is fucking fascinating. Something Melissa was actually just on the side of me before, and she definitely says hello. Wolfman's Got Nards, everybody listening out there. If you've seen Monster Squad 100 times, the best thing about this 4K, once again, you get Wolfman's Got Nards too. The fact that it's made in Canada, for all the Canadian fans, we have a lot of Canadian fans. The fact that you're getting 2 feature-length films in their own right, because Wolfman's Got Nards, as we all know, stand alone. What a bang for your buck, especially if you love physical media and want to keep it alive. But also at the same time, I buy physical media so I can lend it sometimes, or even gift it to people. Like sharing that with you, Jason, was a beautiful thing, because we weren't just streaming it or bootlegging it. Like I remember vividly the day I bought the DVD too. Both, and shout out to one of my best buds, Jason Boudreau. Like, we were in line at the DVD store like half an hour before it opened. No one else was there, but we were just so jazzed. We were just so excited. Very similar to Howard the Duck, like a movie that just doesn't get its love, but when you love it,
you love it.
But we know so many. Sorry for going on and on and on, but I'm excited you're here, man. We know so many people that are in love with this movie, including Benner, who is part of Black Fonts Distro, a great show on YouTube. And we were talking. We had just had a live show and he was a guest on it, and he mentions that he thinks Monster Squad is a way better movie than The Goonies. Now, this comparison has existed since the beginning of time, but Ryan Lambert, who famously plays Rudy, has a very funny comparison to it, correct? Like where Monster Squad is better and why?
Well, it's something that we came up with sort of backstage of a lot of things that we do, Q&As or conventions or screenings and things, and that always comes up. It's always sort of this Goonies versus Monster Squad, and
yeah.
I even did the Fantastic Debates at Fantastic Fest with Anik Mahert, who's is an awesome producer and film festival programmer, and she's a big Goonies fan, and I was representing Monster Squad, and I thought I won the debate, but so it started even way back. That I think there's similarities, but they're very different movies.
Yeah.
And so I kind of take the academic route when I compare the two. But if we're going to have fun with it, and we go back. We came up with look, I always preface it. Goonies is great. Goonies fans are awesome. We have crossovers. Some are just in different camps. It's sort of, Socias and the Greasers. But look, the Goonies are great at saving the neighborhood from a developer. The Monster Squad
fired.
The Monster Squad saved the world from fucking Dracula.
Right, exactly. A little bit more.
That was Ryan's kind of a follow up. I would set it up, he would knock it out of the park, and everybody gets a great hoot because it's a very, very captive audience. If you were in a theater with 150 Monster Squad fans, you're going to get the cheers on that one.
That's amazing.
Look, Goonies is a huge hit, and it's it's an icon, and it's a staple, and everybody's amazing in that movie. And then look at the breadth of work that everybody that of course was in Goonies. Look, I auditioned for Goonies. It was and all of them auditioned for Monster Squad. It's all the same thing. It's a very small group, and the main difference, if we get academic about it, I'll let the crass shots fired Wayne and Peter out. But look, Goonies is fun. People love it. They connected with it. They thought it was a great, kiddie romp, through the caves looking for a pirate ship and then being chased by like the Pizza Brothers. Okay, but it's great. It's great. We have a body count.
Yeah.
And it's not small. It's like there's literally a body. There's a lot of dead people in Monster Squad.
Yeah.
Where Monster Squad is, it's a kid's adventure movie. Yes, Goonies is a kid's adventure movie only. Monster Squad is a kid's adventure movie. It's a horror comedy. It's a straight up creature feature. Yep. It's a straight up monster horror. Monster killing people left and right, heads smashed, necks crushed, it's people blowing up in a car. There's a lot going on there that's not really comparable to what goes on in the Goonies.
Right. True. Very true. Very true. It's got a lot more edge to it, and it's a little bit more well-rounded.
It does. Now, I think there's some reasons for that, of course, just, from the original concepts and the stories and the writing is where it all kind of, stems from. And, when you go back and watch Goonies now, it's still fun because you connect with that time. I don't know if it holds up as well with the same things that we started out talking about, like the themes or the archetypes or the characters or the sense of belonging in a group or things like that. And we've been talking about this, for, 20 years now almost, and I think it starts with the writing and the character development and things like that. And normally, let's say in the mid 80s, if you're writing, there wasn't a lot of stuff for kids. There's very few kid-driven features, let alone anything, not much on television. We're not to the 90s yet. Right. We're not, Nickelodeon and Disney Family Channel and stuff like that. And so kids were always kind of like written down to or talked down to, or they're just kind of, whatever.
Or their plot devices that the adults need to go save and solve everything.
Right. And really it was so much more opposite of that in the original kind of drafts of Monster Squad. It was like the parents, the adults don't know what the hell's going on, and they're all missing out because we can't convince them that it's going on, and we have to step up. But I think, if you go back to the mid 80s, I think the main reason, like I said, is the writing and the creation of these stories and these people and these characters. If you take something like Goonies, look who writes the Goonies, and look who writes most stuff for kids in a big studio feature. It's usually 45, 50-year-old dudes,
Right.
Yeah.
that haven't been 13 years old in a really long time.
Yeah.
And then they're going to really be stereotypical or have, something that doesn't last or doesn't, play well 20, 30 years later. Monster Squad was written by two dudes that were 13 just a few years ago. When you really shake it up, it was written by, young 20 somethings.
Sure.
Yeah.
So they're a lot more closer to it.
Writing. And that comes through. And I think that's really the beginning of the reason that it lasts and actually connected with the real live kids watching it on the screen or renting it from the video store, right? Like every Friday until the tape ran out, or you just stole the videotape and kept it, and then your mom's credit card owned a movie license, and I think that's really kind of what makes the big difference in comparing Monster Squad to almost anything else. Because who doesn't love kid group adventure movies? Because we all want to do that. We went out in our backyards and did that. Now we see it on the big screen, and then I got to make a movie. We got to do it. So I got all of that.
Yeah.
But not all of them kind of hit the same, and not all of them last. And look, my two favorite kids adventure movie of the 80s, it's Monster Squad's, I don't vote for ourselves. But they're great stories, and some hold up and some don't. It just depends on the writing, the archetypes, the themes, and the connective tissue that what it means. And that's why Stand By Me is a fantastic movie.
Sure. Now,
amazing.
I'm going to bring up something now, which really made a lot of sense to me after I watched it. Because, when people watch Stranger Things, there's comparisons that they make to a lot of the 80s stuff.
Mm-hmm.
To me, when I watch what happens in Stranger Things, the comparisons are a lot stronger to what's going on in Monster Squad, because the kids are taking care of the shit. There's body count, there's real violence, and it's super multifaceted. So to me, Monster Squad is almost like a blueprint for Stranger Things.
And I don't think you'd be the only one that would ascertain that.
Yeah.
So a little funny anecdote when we're making Wolfman.
Yeah.
There was I don't want to say it was a short list, but there was a list of individuals and people and creatives and names that I knew that I would love to try to get on camera to talk about the impact of Monster Squad, the impact of fandom, the impact of nostalgia, the impact of, cult status, things like that. Mm. And, a lot of them some we got surprised and able to come across. And then, there's one or two or three that I didn't get on camera because of scheduling or just didn't work out. But on the main list at the beginning, because Stranger Things had just sort of blown up the universe. Mm. And I said, well, the Duffer Brothers are really cool because they've made this really thing that's kind of blown up on Netflix. And I've seen it, and it smells and feels a little bit like, kind of Monster Squad-esque, that there's a little tinge to it, or like they're like, hey, we're gonna do that. And then I think there's some direct lifts. there's in season 1, there's definitely some literal direct lifts if you look at it from that biased opinion.
Right.
So we had our researcher and one of our assistant producers, as we're making this movie on the road for so long, reach out to the Duffer Brothers,
okay,
and who ironically are from North Carolina and grew up and lived not far from where I've spent many, many years, because my second home is in North Carolina and Raleigh, Triangle area, things like that. So I was like, hey, I have a connection with these guys. I know where they went to high school, something like that. And then they're going to hang out with me and be my friend. And what's interesting when you're making a documentary about something that either someone knows everything about or nothing about, the hardest thing to do if you don't have that personal connect to them, managers and agents hate documentary.
Yeah.
Because there's no commission there, right? There's nothing that, and it does not going to help their client. I've ran into a bunch of friends that I know that we called their people because I didn't have a direct. I'm like, God damn it, you should have called me directly. And I was like, well, because reps are great, but reps suck sometimes. Anyway, so the question, trying to reach the Duffer Brothers, who I don't have a personal connect with. I don't even have like a one-off. I was trying to get like Ryan from Blumhouse to kind of reach out and connect and do the whole, kind of industry thing. And the initial correspondence, and I don't even remember where they're repped at the time, it may change, but they said, oh, you're doing what? About, huh? okay, well, I'll contact my client. And so I don't know how long back. I'm not handling these phone calls, which may have been one of the problems. But the communication came back with a return call and it said, okay, yeah, I've talked to I have reached out to my clients, and they've never seen the Monster Squad, and so they don't think they should be talking about it. And we were all kind of just paused, and we're like, okay, have they seen their own show? That's really weird. And of course we're assuming, right? We're making these assumptions, which we all know what happens there. So I said, all right, I don't necessarily believe, like, until I meet one of the Duffer Brothers and they go, you know what, I've never seen it, I'm going to hold it in my pocket for a little bit, that I'm not taking this.
Yeah, of course.
So we had to go with that. We didn't get them because we thought it would be a great through line at the time. This was 2016, 2017, making a documentary about Monster Squad, and Stranger Things is the biggest thing on the planet at this time, season 1.
Oh, yeah.
And so I kind of, over time, had to just get used to the fact that was reality. And we're not going to get these two cool dudes to, talk about their show in our documentary and the influences that may or may not have occurred, or maybe even the coincidences, because that'd be even more fun. And but then I realized that Ryan Lambert had put me onto an interview that they did. We're talking in some publication, and they're actually a lot younger than I am, and so of the time. So they missed the era. But it doesn't mean they didn't, couldn't have seen great stuff at the time. Sure. And Stranger Things, they're talking about like, hey, we wanted to make a show that kind of felt like touched on all the things that we grew up liking. And we were assuming they were sort of like the same and all in the same era, but they were a little bit younger. So they saw like E.T. on DVD or something, it's like they saw, and so it may have, so I was like, okay, that may be an answer there.
Right, of course.
And so, okay, I will, like, again, until I hang out with them and have iced tea in the afternoon and they say, yeah, I've never seen it, I'm still not going to take it as truth, but I will give it a benefit of the doubt. But their writers sure have seen Monster Squad.
Okay.
So there's a difference there. You forget that there's a writing room on big shows. And so, they were talking about how they just wanted to create a show that brought in all these cool things that of this era of time that people were just starting to kind of revisit again. This is 8 years, 6, 7 years ago, whenever Stranger Things dropped.
All the kids are 40 now, so yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, that's right. We were just starting on the upswing of the 80s nostalgia, kind of, chomping at the bit for that. Now we're dead in the middle of the 90s, right? If you walk outside and see what everybody's wearing and how kids are dressed.
Yeah.
It's
crazy. It's great. My daughter the other day was wearing these like big baggy jeans, and I'm like,
giant.
You look like the kids that would have come to my shows in '99.
Exactly. And so, we swung there. So that was an interesting thing with them. But there's been a lot of comparisons to the two. And I've still never met them. I've never met anybody associated with the show. They've never called us to ask us to be in the season. So I'm like, yeah, maybe they don't like us.
Right.
But, speaking of Goonies, it's great to see someone like Sean Astin, kind of touch on something and get to do something like Stranger Things. And, so that's really cool that that still kind of threads through that small group because, we're all part of that.
It's like if you remember the Brat Pack, you might have been like a bit of an offshoot, but you were still part of that. Like you might not have been in some of the big John Hughes movies, but even if you were in Some Kind of Wonderful, you're still, you're still part of that. You know what I mean?
It is. And, you have sort of these eras or epochs of time, when you're a younger actor and, when it counts or when it's cool or when it's cheesy. And they kind of go in blocks of, probably about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to kind of have a kind of stretch over into almost 2 epics, early 80s-ish. I was around because I was super young, but I actually worked a lot when I was very, very young. So I got to go to things and meet all these people that were the cool 16, 17, 18-year-olds at the time.
I've seen the pictures of you and Drew Barrymore. It's true.
Yeah, I mean, that's right in the peak of my time when I was a, 14, 15, 16-year-old. So it's really weird because, when you're 12, you're not going to be hanging out with 17-year-olds.
Right.
If you're 30, you can hang out with a 35-year-old. It's like, it's not. But when you're teenagers, it doesn't really happen in crossover. It's just different crowds and different access. But I got to be around all those early 80s, kind of the Brat Pack, what they were called. And then we had our late 80s, mid and late 80s, which I'm really kind of a part of that core. And I love it. I mean, who wouldn't think back and go, not very many people got to be a part of that.
Yeah,
And
no kidding.
whether you're on a giant show or the biggest box office movie, we're all friends. We all auditioned the same stuff. We all read for the same roles, and we all grew up together because most of us started when we were 5.
So you're ready. Preparation met the opportunity. That's why you're so awesome when you're a teenager.
Most people think people just show up and they I was like, nah, people have been around a long time. There's very few overnight successes, and I love those stories as well. And so when you think back to your time, it really. So everybody loves Monster Squad and the show and the movies, and they go back to their nostalgia and their day of their kids and running around the neighborhood and their girlfriends at the time or their best friends and running around in the woods or on their bikes. And I have those exact same type of regular kid history memories, but I also have this other existence in a world that 0.0001% of humans got to experience with some really awesome people. Right. That some you don't hear from today, and some are giant stars, and it's cool to be a part of that as well, because that's our little nugget of nostalgia that's only privy to us, And I try to kind of bring as many people into that because they were part of that from the outside, watching what we did. Right. And it's kind of neat to think back, and you have to appreciate it and respect that a little bit. Most people make fun of it, and or poke fun or clown it a little bit. And there's some comebacks that that we've come up with that too. But I think just yesterday, a couple of weeks ago, Ryan Lambert and I did one of our oldest, bestest, most beautiful friends podcast, Nicole Eggert, and. Who I've known since I was 5 years old, and she has a podcast with a buddy, and it was Halloween time. So Ryan and I jumped on and we talked about Monster Squad and Halloween and their kids. And Nicole just, got diagnosed with breast cancer, which is super scary for her and for everybody. But just yesterday she had Alyssa Milano on her podcast. I'm scrolling through my Instagram feed and there's Nicole. I was like, oh wait, there's Alyssa. I'm like, oh wait, this is a Saturday afternoon in 1988. And so and then you're sitting there and going, wait a minute, people don't realize these are two of the most gorgeous girls on the planet in a decade that, we used to all be best friends with and hang out with. So I was like, I think I'm going to watch a little of this for a little bit. And so it's really neat to be part of that era. It was the long point I was trying to make.
To touch on that, Comic-Cons and shows and conventions all over the world are so popular now. And, I know you've done shows before and you do them. Is it fun when you get to do a show and there's someone from that era that is appearing the same weekend and you guys get to connect and maybe go for dinner or spend some time? It must be great. That must be the best.
It is, because sometimes, you repeat and you see some of the same folks, but then, every once in a while you get to, connect with someone that you don't get to see on a regular basis or haven't seen in maybe 20, 30 years or something. And it's just fascinating. And then you got to think back and then tell stories. And it's like, hey, remember the time we came over and you jumped in the pool off the roof? And so it's like, we're just dorky kids anyway. And, it's just such an interesting period of time in general, but to be a part of a very small select group that got to do TV and film at the time.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That we all that's a small club, and so that's that's kind of an interesting group. That in a bigger meta sense, that was a kid's adventure story as well too. With just this small group of kids that did a majority of the work that got to do all of this cool shit, and to watch people grow up and they continue to be who they are. And the thing that blows my mind about that era is, there was no internet, obviously. Mm-hmm. Anybody that's watching or listening, there was a time that there was no internet. Mm-hmm. And
back in the old days, before the dark times, before the empire.
This was before the empire. And to watch these, people grow up in this industry, but then, we had the media of the time was either kind of like tabloid stuff or teen magazines.
Right.
And so that was the big media to where okay, you're promoting something, you're on a new show, you're doing Win a Date with Andre Gower, which we did dozens of times, which is just weird. It's like, can you do that now? That seems problematic.
Yeah, it'd be a little weird.
People write fan letters and they have contests and all these, there's probably 8 or 10.
I'm a 45-year-old man, but I call myself Leslie.
Right.
On paper, I'm 14.
Yeah, it also happened back then. but it was technically there, but it was a little more innocent and genuine. But
Yeah.
my favorite thing is when you go back and see some old photos, whether they're online or you actually have the magazine laying around or someone shows you an old article, and there's a group of people, and you're like, okay, and like one of them I think is my birthday. I think I had like my 15th birthday party or 13th birthday party or something at this pizza place in LA, which is really cool. And it's all your friends. It's Andre Gower's birthday party, and like magazine time. It's like, here's Brian Greene and David Faustino and Stacey Keenan and Alyssa Milano and Nicole Eggers, since we mentioned them, and newcomer Brad Pitt. And, because Brad Pitt's older, and he was around at that era, but he wasn't working a lot.
Yeah, right.
And he was just sort of this tall, really good-looking blonde kid that was sort of in the periphery, in the background of all these group photos. But he was an older guy. And then there was I don't want to say some weird issues, but he ended up dating like one of our friends, and like they went off to live together for like it was really weird. Like, who's this guy? We don't know who this guy is. Mm-hmm. And newcomer Brad. My favorite, on the caption is newcomer Brad Pitt or newcomer Heather Graham, or newcomer.
Sure.
And then there was a lot of times where you're in group photos of that time, and you're good friends with all, you're super good friends with a handful of people, and then you're just pals and acquaintances, and kind of like go around the corner and smooch with someone when you're 13 or something. And I look back and I looked at this photo years and years ago. I said, who is that next to Jenny Lewis, who was one of my favorite music artists in the world, and I did a show with her when I was 10. But it was Carla Gugino as like a 12-year-old. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot that she was, oh my God, how cute has she been? She's gorgeous now. She was gorgeous then. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so weird to just kind of, fill in gaps and update things all the time. And like I said, there's some people you don't hear about, and there's people that are the biggest stars of the day as we speak, and doing some awesome stuff. And it's just a neat time to be in it, and to be a kid in the entertainment industry. And I just marvel at I grew up around some really, really talented people.
Sure.
That were my contemporaries. And I feel very, very, I have shortcomings when I compare myself to a lot of them, because I can't sing. I don't dance. I don't play 3 instruments. And a lot of people don't realize how multi-talented a lot of these people are.
Of course. Yeah.
A lot of, what was it when they win like a Tony, an Oscar, like an EGOT or something?
An EGOT. Yeah. An EGOT.
Yeah. Andre, I got to ask you, first of all, shout out to Matt Kelly, who actually appears in Wolfman's God Nards in the beginning. If there's going to be any extended special features, I want to see some Matt Kelly in there.
Yeah, there may be. I haven't seen. I don't know what they're going to pick and put in there. The final cut of this if they do it. But extended Matt Kelly thing would be cool.
Yeah. Matt Kelly, to everybody listening, he's a host of an amazing podcast called Horror Movie Nights, One Hit Wonders, and a One Hit Thunder, and so many other ones. Oh, and one about Weird Al songs called Weird Algorithm, which is great. So people have appeared in Wolfman's God Nards, but what is a celebrity that has come up to you and said, "Oh my God, I love the Monster Squad," and you're like, "You?" Like, I am amazed that someone as well known as you likes the film, because for what's worth, Jason and I were in Niagara Falls at a Comic-Con last June, and I struck up a conversation with Damien, who directs Terrifier, and he is a huge fucking Monster Squad fan. We must have talked about it for 40 minutes. Okay. So he loves Monster Squad. So
I got to get in touch with him and be in Terrifier 5.
Yeah. No, seriously, Damien is amazing. He does those movies completely himself. He even does the special effects and makeup in it. Yeah. Like, Hollywood came a knock and wanted to change division, and he's like, I'd rather take none of the money and keep it real.
Yeah.
So like a Chappelle skit, when keeping it real goes right in this case. But what's a celebrity that's come up to you and you're just like, holy shit, you? That's amazing.
There's probably a handful that have come up to me, which is the actual question. And if I think of the really cool one, that I'm kind of just like taken aback, like at a convention or a screening or something. But over the time, like, of other friends or other fans that are like, for some reason, like SNL has a big Monster Squad connect, like a bunch of SNL cast members are Monster Squad fans. So
Really?
I learned at one time that Bill Hader was a big Monster Squad fan. So like,
Yes.
I sent him like I signed the DVD and like sent it to his manager. I don't know if he ever got it,
Okay.
but it, it was that dream of like, hey man, it's Bill, or hey man, it's Bill. Thanks for the DVD. Like, you want to hang out and have lunch? I'll be like, yes. But Kenan Thompson's a Monster Squad fan.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is interesting because he's a little bit younger, but that's rad too. And I actually know like I ran into a connect randomly at a meeting with a friend of his business partner, and now he and I are friends, Johnny, and they're doing some cool stuff. They just launched a company, and I kind of like Keenan's like the next. He's like the next guy. Like, he's the multi guy. Like, he's everywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's got his own show. He's got his own endorsements. He's got his own putty. He goes around. He's the man now. So that's kind of cool. And Taron Killian is a big Monster Squad fan. And wow. I know I was segueing into Taron because I don't know him personally, but I found out through someone I do know personally who's really good friends with Taron Killian. And it's someone that he's a huge name now. But back when he was new to town in the early 2000s, he was just this tall, good-looking, guy who was a client of a friend of mine, who was a manager. New blood in town. Yeah. And this good-looking guy, and we would all go out and as cool people do, and have drinks on a Wednesday morning. I mean, Friday nights, and and go and hang out, in LA all day. And a lot of times this guy lived on my side of town. So I would drive him home, and where we would get home, I'd drop him off. And he was living in a little, kind of shitty apartment, actually near Paramount, which is great. And he was just a cool but crazy dude at the time. And we, spend late nights hanging out together. And I knew him for years. And then I left. I actually left LA in like 2005 and went and did some other things for a while. And this guy becomes like bigger than Davy Crockett. And I'm like, wow, that's I've watched this guy just become who he became over 10, 12 years. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I remember hanging out with him, and just, driving him home, and we hang out in the afternoons, and because he's my friend's client. Right. And it's Joe Manganiello.
Wow.
So, and this is before he's like super ripped, like amazing. Like, he was just this guy. He was just a dude that came to LA to try to do it, and then he fucking did it, and which is awesome. And so I see Joe years and years. It's years and years ago, but it's years and years later after this. I really hadn't. He's married to Sofia Vergara now. He's True Blood. He's our.
That's what I was going to say. Was it before? It was post True Blood.
Oh yeah, this is just 2018. 2017.
Because True Blood, he just exploded with that.
Yeah, that's what he just kind of launched. And I remember back in the day, he a lot of people know or don't know that he actually has a small feature role in the first Spider-Man movie.
Yeah,
really?
Right. Right. And so he was, then there was a potential
that was before he was like ripped.
Oh yeah. This is the Joe that I hung out with. This is the guy I know.
Of course,
and then he becomes True Blood, and it's this huge thing. This is amazing.
Listen, as an unripped individual, as Flash Thompson, he was no, he was no Steve Rogers in need of the serum. Okay,
no. He was no back then. He was no fluff. He was no fluff.
Harrison.
But so I see Joe. I can't remember where I ran into him. It might have been something like at the Egyptian Theater or something, Beyond Fest or something. And I run into him, and he's like, "Dude," and I'm like, "Dude." He's like, "Dude." He's like,
"What's
dude.
mine say? Sweet. What's mine say?"
I think I know what it was. It might have been the first Beyond Fest screen or the second Beyond of Monster Squad. Like, they showed Monfest and Beyond Fest. I think we're at the Egyptian, if I remember, and we're like out in the lobby. And I run into Joe, and I'm like, "Holy shit, it's Joe!" And he's like, "Holy shit, it's Andre." We're like, "What's up, man? How's it going?" I'm like, "What are you doing here?" He's like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "What are you doing here?" He's like, "I'm a huge fucking Monster Squad fan." And I'm like,
"Really?
What?" And this is now that this is kind of at the same time I'm doing I did a show that I sold to Nerdist and Legendary Studios called Short Ends, and Ryan Lambert and I co-hosted. It was about short films, and we interviewed the directors and kind of showcased new filmmakers. Right. And I loved that concept. But so like Joe was like hosting D&D games at his house, and then like they would podcast it and stuff. And because then I realized that Joe was sort of in this fantasy nerd geek world that we all are.
He's got a really cool clothing line too.
Yeah, and I'm like,
and an insanely hot wife. It's
ex-wife now, unfortunately. But
okay.
He goes,
still,
you didn't know that? I said, I didn't know that.
Okay.
I said, did you just? He's like, dude, I have been a gigantic Monster Squad fan my entire life. I was like, Joe, we hung out for years. Why did you never mention that?
I'm not going to tell you that. That would.
He goes, dude, I'm never going to tell you that.
Of course
I just came in town like in your. I was like, I was never going to admit that.
No.
And I was like, wait, what are you talking about? And then he starts going, hey, one of my best friends, Taryn Killam, he's a huge Monster fan. We watch it at the house. I'm like, can we all go hang out? Like, stop. Like, what is happening? So to answer your question, again, in a big tangent story leading up, Joe's a great story like that because I knew him prior, but I never knew. And then he tells me 15 years later that he's a huge Monster fan. And I had just wrapped on the doc, and I was trying to shoot an extra interview just to get Joe at the time.
Oh, man.
And I couldn't make it happen. So that's sort of the best story of that, to answer your question. But my favorite Monster Squad fan is Ryan Gosling.
Okay. That's cool. That's cool.
Ken?
Huge Monster Squad fan.
So these are guys that you got to get. So when Kino does this, well, hopefully, they don't want to break it. When they do this standalone, you got to talk to those guys.
That could be some extra kind of interviews that we may get now to put at the front bumper of this release. And that'd be, I need to talk to him about that. That'd be great. And I mean, I can email Joe or, I can call Shane Black again and hope
like Joe, which of your like, Joe, do you know anybody else that likes Monster Squad?
Yeah, no, I found it's a great idea that I've written down as like a dream sheet of going and getting like, hey, let's go put a camera on Gosling. Let's go put a camera on Magnello. Let's go put a camera on Taron. Let's get Bill Hader, Taron Killam, and Kenan Thompson in the same camera.
You could sell a DVD just based on that, Blu-ray.
And do some upfront, kind of special features.
But Jason's right, though. But if you look at it in a sense where this is a disc that exists to have special features, technically speaking, if it's too technically impossible to include them into the DVD the Blu-ray that exists, if you have a segment that's only the celebrity people as a special feature, you could still write it glaringly in the back of the Blu-ray.
You could, featuring,
like all-star Monster Squad fan-orama, Ryan Gosling, Joe, and all that shit.
Yeah, I still have the original notebooks that I worked off of when we were developing the doc and then actually in production, that I kept adding awesome people that we need to go get that we learn about. And, when you're flying all over the place, literally flying all over the place and bouncing all over the place, schedules and everything you just don't get. So it would be kind of cool now that we may have this thing, because like I said, I've already pulled out those
fucking iPhone. It just has to exist.
Yeah, I've already pulled out those those old note lists.
You've got to let Kino do the fucking heavy lifting. They've got the relationships with the studios. They've got people that can do this. They acquire all kinds of incredible movies. I mean, they're what they've been putting out. It's not like, and like I mentioned to you, there's about 4 or 5 people that are doing physical media really well right now. Okay. Yeah. There's Arrow, there's Vinegar Syndrome, there's Shout Factory, but Kino are getting they're getting stuff like Serpico. They're getting stuff like Escape from Alcatraz. They're getting all the Clint Eastwood, Man with No Name stuff. Like they're getting really good stuff. Mm-hmm. They're getting Friedkin's, like they're getting good titles. So they can go get you people. So lean on them. Or I'm gonna like
I said, this is
Joe. You got a team behind you now.
This is just fairly new. Like I said, I dusted off those lists with the same idea. I was like, this would be amazing.
yes. But seriously, man, we've been on for an hour now. I know you've probably got a ton of things to do, but I'm appreciative that you took the time to chat with us today, because honestly, somebody who kind of went into it reversed, who had seen the doc because we were chatting, and then got to see the movie. I'm kind of glad I got to wait to see it on 4K, because it really was a great experience to see it the first time that way. And I do encourage people that who, if you've not seen it yet, now's a great time to see it, because I would imagine this 4K transfer is probably what any streaming service is going to be using now as well, right?
You would think so.
I would think you would
because
think.
It exists, and
Right.
whether Kino owns it or they did it in partnership with, current actual distribution rights holder for Monster Squad. It's a great version.
Yeah.
And it should be. If it is, it should be the streamer version. But the other, now it's cool that you got to see that as the first iteration.
Yeah.
But now we got to get you. We got to get you in a movie theater with about 130 Monster Squad fans and watch it on 35.
Yes,
which is a whole other experience.
And the other thing, to ask a question, this is Kino's got the rights probably for North America, which means there's probably other international releases that are going to happen.
You mean for Wolfman?
For Monster Squad?
For Monster Squad.
Would they be paired with Wolfman? Like, could this pairing happen in another territory? Like, could there be a German media book release? Could there be another territory that's going to get this release, like Australia? Like, I know Imprint, and there's a bunch of great distributors in Australia. They're doing great physical too. So
there are, and what seemed to, unfortunate, like I said, when we were actually losing that deal, the original acquisition and distribution deal for Wolfman in 19, crossing over into 2020, as we finally got North America with the current distributor done, I didn't realize also at the same time, while our sales agent at the time was tanking but not on purpose, but losing our original acquisition deal, they also weren't working on international release. And so I found that out very late. I had to take over the reins of that. And Wolfman actually has an international sales agency, which is the awesome folks at Raven Banner, which is awesome. Up in your neck of it. And so Michael and James and all them, they've gone and put it in markets, and what ends up happening, interestingly enough, especially with international distribution, is it depends on when your movie says it was made and released. And if your movie's old, the value tanks.
Yeah.
And there's no pre-sales. Distributors in certain markets aren't interested to give you any kind of upfront or MGs or really do any pushes. By the time we had this whole debacle with the original deal, it almost was a year after we festivaled, and then it was almost a year and a half, 2 years after we festivaled, which means your movie was released.
Right.
And, James and they all, they ran into the same thing. It was like, oh, this is an old movie. It was like, but no one's seen it. Like, it doesn't matter. It says 2018. And it's like, yeah, but it's 2020 and 2021. They're like, yeah, but it's old. So the value drops. So it's out there in markets. And, Arrow is the distributor in the UK for Wolfman Scott and Arts. But I haven't seen anything about it. I haven't seen anybody talk about it. So I don't know if anybody's actually put it out, either on a streamer or anything, because it got to the point where I had to almost, shut the work down on that, because I was dealing with I was like, okay, if this isn't happening, I just got to let this go.
It got to go. Yeah.
And I got to let it go. And, but Australia is great. It's Australia, New Zealand. They love it. They have it in Latin America. Germany actually did do a thing, and I met those cats. And they put like a steel book out. It's all in German, which is meta. If you watch Monster Squad, it's like, oh, this is German.
Sure.
And
you're like, you're saying it wrong.
Yeah, I would have loved to do like a whole thing where I get it, but it took so long to get it. I was going to do like an Instagram and go, this is great. This is German.
Yeah.
And that'd have been fun. And maybe I still will, but I just kind of really backed away from a lot of it because I was dealing with some other stuff.
Right.
And I was like, okay, if that's over, then it's over. And I think because I kind of let that just kind of not tear away at you and try to push and try to make something happen. And I just kind of let it go. The universe came back, and we had these keynote conversations.
Right.
And it's, it sounds woo woo and crazy, but sometimes that shit happens.
You gotta let it go.
You just gotta let it go because it might come back to you. And I think this is a cool example. Even if the only thing we get is the companion piece to this 4K release, then Wolfman's getting some physical love, and a lot of people are seeing it.
And it's validation to your documentary. It validates it because it's part of Monster Squad canon now, because it's in a company, like it's part of that. It's not just this off piece that this guy who was in the movie did. It's really like, no, it's respected enough to be part of an official release, which I think what's going to happen is this is going to happen in other territories where they're going to go, well, we've got a 4K scan and we've got let's grab that other thing. Let's put it. So hopefully there'll be more of these, because suckers like me will buy more of them.
Well, from your mouth to all the international distributors' ears, call James at Raven Banner and make that happen.
I actually can get a hold of them very easily, so we'll do it.
Yeah, I love those guys up there. Raven Banner does good stuff. Ironically, it's tough because one of my favorite things that Raven Banner ever put out was Tigers Are Not Afraid, and which is Issa Lopez's awesome, weird, supernatural, creepy movie that I saw years ago. And now she's doing True Detective on HBO, and everybody's loving
the new season with
the new season of True Detective with Jodie Foster. Yeah,
Jodie Foster.
And so I'm waiting. I can't wait anymore. Like, I'm going to wait till, and then I'm going to watch it all.
I know.
I want to sop it up with a biscuit and just eat the whole thing.
You've never seen any? Have you seen the first couple seasons of it?
Yeah, I have, and I revisited season 2 because I kind of like missed it. Season 1 was great. True Detective, and it's very interesting. Everybody has their own kind of take on things, but I love E6. I think she's awesome, and she's just a super nice person. And I'm glad she got that opportunity, which is really rad. And I hope the success of that allows her to go do, at least a movie a year for the next 20 years. So it's, so then we're all better for it. And, I just like, it's stuff like that that's just fun and cool. And especially when you know the people and you can circle back, or this is kind of a big world, but it's a small world, especially when you cross over and get to know people. And then you run into people, and then, full circle, we talk back like kids we grew up with that are now, look at the circle that Ki-Hu Kwan has been able to experience and enjoy over the last 3 years with Everything Everywhere All at Once. And then now he's fantastic in that movie.
It's incredible. That movie is incredible.
He is absolutely fantastic.
The movie is amazing.
And he just appeared out of nowhere again, and just put in this performance. And it just goes to show, it's like, fuck, sometimes it's like riding a bike, but it's a superior performance than he ever did before. It's almost like he was his skill was marinating, waiting to be used.
I totally agree, and the story's fascinating. The duo that made Everything Everywhere All at Once, but they lived in that world, and they were having this character. And I was listening to an interview with them on NPR. When they were developing, kind of getting this weird movie together.
Yeah.
And one of them said, which, and I don't like this, but I understand the sentiment. I wish it had been worded different. He goes, "Where's Short Round?" And I was like, well, Short Round's a character in an Indiana Jones movie. The guy you're talking about's name is Ki-Hu Kwan. That's where Ki-Hu Kwan is. But, everybody's, people say, "Where's Sean Crenshaw?" I was like, well, I'm the guy that played him's right here.
Right.
And they called him, and they came in, and he nailed it, because they thought that he had not done anything for years. Where he had continued to act. It's tough to transition out of kid and then teenager and then young adult. And at the time, he ran into his story is fascinating, that there were no roles for him that people would give him that were worth anything even there. And then if they were, it was kind of tropey and, almost the tropey characters that he had actually played as a kid, but they work as a kid, but not as an adult. And he was like, all right, I guess this isn't happening. And so he was a stunt coordinator for decades.
Yeah.
And worked in production, and everybody thought he disappeared and was like living in a box under the 405. I was like, No, this dude was working in the industry overseas and here. He just had to go and do something else and garnered a whole other skill set and professional expertise in something.
Yeah, which is great.
And then these guys call him back and he comes in and he absolutely
crushes it.
It would have been great just to see his face in something fun.
Oh, like Indiana Jones 4 or 5?
Yeah, right. When you have to switch characters in mid-sentence because your time shift, you're embodying a different dimension, but almost mid-sentence. It's hard to play 3 different characters. Like Peter Sellers does it in Strangelove, fabulously.
Yeah.
That's difficult too. But to do it in mid-sentence,
no.
He got all of the flowers, as the kids say now, that he should have gotten for that. And it's not hype.
No, it's
that
not.
Could have very been easily as a big engineered thing and this nostalgia thing, and Short Round comes back or Data comes back and, makes it a thing, and everybody's overhyping this performance. There was no overhyping all that. That was absolutely amazing. And I'm so proud, I was like, that's just rad to watch.
It's just fun when you see a director or in that case, like a pair of directors, but when a director wants somebody and actively seeks them out. And when Tarantino did the same thing for Travolta in Pulp Fiction, people forget
Perfect example.
Travolta's character was in the shitter. Like his career, not his character.
He was in movies with talking dogs.
No, I think that was I mean, he just he really had and I think it's because he had acted for so long. I mean, like just the stuff he had done.
He's great.
And he had done stuff before Pulp Fiction. He had been acting for so long. Like when you think he was in Blowout. Like he was in stuff like a long time ago. Before Saturday Night Fever. So, and obviously Welcome Back Kotter and all that. So he's been acting for long time. And the fact that he got that second kick of the can, there's a generation that would never understand that was kind of what happened in, the same kind of thing. It's a director. It's someone that says, no, I want that guy.
And I'll give you a fabulous example of that kind of full circles and brings it back, and that's connected here.
Yeah.
Is the best example of exactly what you're talking about is in the early 2000s. Shane Black no one had worked with Shane for 10 years after he sold the 2 highest screenplays in the history of Hollywood.
Yeah.
And the movies came out and they were because he didn't make them. And he had this new script, a buddy comedy crime noir thing. And I love it because he told the story at like a meet and greet at the WGA one time. And he had this script and walked it to Donner and Warner Brothers and said, I have a new script. He said, well, I guess we can get it in there and look at it. They're like, hey, they like it. They want to start developing it. He's like, the thing is, I'm directing it. And Shane had never directed before. And Donner and the studio was like, yeah, no, that's not happening. We're not doing a big studio movie with first-time director. He's like, well, then we're not making this movie.
Right.
Go fuck off. And they said, all right, okay, we'll talk about it. And so they went down the road and got it down. I was like, okay, you can direct it. And he said, and by the way, I wrote this movie with 2 people in mind as the leads. And they're like, yeah, but we're the studio. We make those calls. And he's like, then we're not doing this movie. And I'm like, all right, who are the 2 people? Now remember when this is. He tells Warner Brothers, Val Kilmer and Robert Downey Jr. And at that moment, both of those actors, a la John, it was even worse than Travolta. Mm-hmm. These 2 dudes were never working again, ever. They were uninsurable. They were not going to be on a set ever again.
Yeah.
He resurrects both, who are both fantastic actors, by the way. Val Kilmer's a lot more than you think he is in anything.
Oh, God. He's amazing. And incredible.
Just go watch Top Secret. And then, this movie comes out and resurrects Robert Downey Jr. from the dead. Not even from the dead. He's dead and in Hades. He's under the river Styx. He's never coming out.
Yeah.
And then he's fucking Iron Man.
Yeah.
And he becomes the highest paid actor ever. And it's like resurrects a career and turns it around, all because Shane said, I wrote the script with these 2 guys in mind.
And I want you to be in Kiss
brought
Kiss
them
Bang
both
Bang.
back from the dead. And Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is my favorite Shane Black movie.
Yeah.
It's a great Christmas movie.
They all are. They all are.
Yeah, I'm surprised Monster Squad wasn't set on Christmas, given the fact that Shane sets most of his stuff on Christmas.
He does, but I don't think he had gotten into that quite yet. I think that works on, with Lethal Weapon, which he wrote at the same time.
And it's funny because the whole, you talk about Val Kilmer and of course a lot, now a lot of people know with how, after Val, they did the documentary and all that, where he's at and stuff. But Val Kilmer, it was such an incredible actor and still,
deeper
everyone,
level. Deeper level than most.
Yeah. Like so many, and not, of course he was in The Doors and all that, but just his performance in Heat, just you feel the pain of that guy. And when he, that when he has to, walk away from Ashley Judd and all that stuff.
That's a great look. His mouth, you can see it just
everything. It's just so good. Yeah. So I love those stories of guys coming back and let me end it off on this. If someone was coming to look for you and someone said, I want this guy to be in this, what would you want to do?
Oh man. Damn. That's a great question and a hard one. I enjoy so many things, and I think there's always something that we all think we can do something that we probably maybe shouldn't, but maybe come up short or something. I would love to do something, really deep or really, kind of impactful, but that almost seems performative. Right. Everybody says that. I'm a funny guy. Like I would love to do a Shane Black movie where it's serious and it's kind of noir, but there's jokes and then you get to add your own shit.
Right.
Cause if you watch Gosling and Nice Guys, he's hilarious.
Yeah.
They are absolutely hilarious. What I would actually love if I had like my haha choice, I'd like Shane Black to write Ryan Lambert and I a buddy adventure story. And then we go do that as two actors. That'd be fun. Cause we're the odd couple, but we're very similar, but we're not. I'm the straight guy to his, loose cannon or, whatever. And that's just us in real life. So it would just work. That would be amazing if I had like a choice, but I'm trying to get out of the box, right? This is something different. If they were making, he's not obviously, but maybe he will, because I think this whole thing's bullshit with number 10, but maybe Tarantino and Kill Bill 3.
Ooh,
I would something over the top, something you got to do it right and sharp, but it's maybe over the top or big. And those are fun. That would be kind of cool. So maybe I'm taking, maybe Tarantino, Kill Bill 3. Like, let's do that.
Fuck yeah, dude.
I want to cast you as a vampire and have a kid fucking stab you as you're being pulled towards a portal. That'd be so fun.
And I'd be like, nah.
All right. Thank you for taking the time to chat, man. I really appreciate it. If people have not picked it up yet, go check out the Monster Squad 4K release. You can find Andre's documentary, Wolfman's Got Nards, on here, which is great. And honestly, like Ryan and I were saying, 3 discs, bang for your buck, if you can find it. And if you can find it with a slipcover, because these are going to be gone in the first, that's the thing with Kinos. Everybody that pre-orders them gets a slip. And then all the, the guys after are like, where's my slipcover? I didn't get one. Yeah. Well, you waited too long because you were past the first. And obviously this has gone to a second pressing already because it was so sold out. I mean, it was,
I
had people that were
terrified. I was like, oh, fuck, I fucked up. That's why I bought 2 when it came out again. I was like, never again.
But I appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. It's been really, really fun. You're always a great time to talk with. You got great stories. And man, go get those interviews.
Oh no, like I said, that those notebooks got pulled a while ago. So I'm like, ooh, now I just got to get on the phone and make it happen.
Appreciate you taking the time, man.
Yeah, guys, good to hear from you. Take care. See you next time.
All right, well, there you go, folks. That was one of our longest interviews we've ever done, and it is, and it just flies by. It's like one of those interviews where you kind of happened upon it on the internet, and you're glad you did. I've
Yeah.
been seeing those all the time. When I'm not listening to our own show or editing our show, there are some shows where I'm like, I have a lot to do today. Oh, I have a lot of stuff to design. Then you find this hour-long interview with like, Dee Dee Ramone for like 1986. You're like, yes.
Yeah.
And, it's like one of those days. So very happy that Andre could be on the show. And what a great guy. And also shout out to all the other Monster Squad fans that we know, including Steph Tite from Montreal Comic Con from work. She's a huge Monster Squad fan.
Yeah.
Huge. Even a very petite person, but huge fan. And of course, Benner from Black Fawn Distro. And so many others.
So many Monster Squad fans. I mean, I know they're all over, but I got to tell you, man, I am a fan. And if you want to check this out, go grab it. It's released by Kino Lorber. You can find this, I know, in Canada. You can find it through Unobstructed View. They're a great outlet out of Ontario. And don't forget, this has 3 discs in it. It's got the Blu-ray, it's got the 4K, and it's got its own standalone disc, Wolfman's Got Nards, the documentary on Monster Squad Mania fandom and everything in between. And it's a great, great doc. So you get all your Monster Squad right here through this disc. So I encourage anyone that is a fan to definitely check this out. Ryan, this has been a lot of fun, and I'm glad we did this. And I'm glad that we talked to Andre, because he's just wonderful. What a great dude. And I feel we could have just talked all night with that guy, man. Like it's just, like you said, he's great. He's really, really cool. Our thanks to our producer, Julia Kajerski. Thank you to Studio House Designs. Thank you to Heartbeat Hot Sauce, the heartbeat of the Rockman Power Hour. Ryan, be careful. And thanks to my co-host, Ryan Stick. And thanks to all of you. Please, if you're enjoying the podcast, like, subscribe, hit that subscribe button, like it, share it with your friends, and let us know in the comments what you want to hear more of, who you'd like us to talk to. And we'll be more than happy to try to oblige. And until next time, we'll see you on the Rockman Power Hour.